John.
So I've got the associate upstairs with my market asset protection manager and one other manager.
How long was this theft over?
On the 5th of May 2023, officers in Lucie County, Florida, responded to a Sam's Club theft report. A cashier named Breland had worked there nearly 3 years. The alleged loss exceeded $135,000. Breland used a supervisor's override PIN, belonging to a colleague named Paula, to process fictitious refunds at the register, loading the funds onto third-party debit cards with no merchandise exchanged. Lead Officer Loviano arrested Breland inside the store. The search incident to arrest was lawful under Chimol v. California, 1969. His conduct throughout was objectively reasonable under Graham v. Connor, Etusen Niyo.
Good, how are you? No, you're good. What's going on?
Club manager.
John.
So I've got the associate upstairs with my market asset protection manager and one other manager.
How long was this theft over?
6 months probably.
So it's 200,000.
100,000.
It's 100,000.
Yeah, that we know of.
Okay.
We've got video and everything.
Of every incident or no?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
What, may I ask what he was stealing?
So it's actually faulty refunds. So they were doing refunds at the register and overriding. So she had another supervisor's codes.
Okay.
And would do overrides.
For friends or?
No, herself. She would load it on a card right there. You watch the video.
Yeah.
She does the transaction, does it for $3,000.
So it's 100,000.
Yeah. My market manager will be able to give you the specific. He's the one who did it.
Do you know her name and stuff or no?
Keandra.
How do you spell it?
Keonera.
Keonera.
Breland. Breland.
You don't have her date of birth or anything like that,
Yeah,
right?
I can get it for you.
Is she a female?
Yeah, female.
White, black, Hispanic?
Black.
So she's being cooperative? Like, does she know law enforcement's?
I don't think.
What does she think is going to happen? That she's cooperative with you guys?
Yeah, I don't think she realizes the seriousness of it quite yet. How, I don't know. But I've been in this club since January, and I'm trying to figure out why I was missing so much stuff, man. And finally start digging into it, and then that's when I...
So it looks like returns, right? Like a return of $3,000,
yeah, so
whatever.
She just price override it, but no merchandise actually gets exchanged. And then she just loaded it on different credit cards and debit cards. There's nobody else there in the video on some of those. So,
on her own personal debit card?
I don't know whose debit card it is. I don't think so. There's different numbers every time. So
every time it's different numbers?
Well, there's various numbers when we say that.
Okay.
Yeah. More.
What's the membership cost nowadays?
$50 for regular membership, 110 for plus.
What's the plus do?
You get cash rewards for if you shop with us enough. The membership basically pays for itself.
That's why I'm a
I go,
BJ
Brandon.
fan.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
This guy's alright. I don't know about him now.
You shop here, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, they got nice stuff in here, dude. I haven't been in here. Hello.
Come on in.
Hello. How are you? What's your name?
Kiki.
Kiki? With 2 Ks?
No, KK.
Oh. I was gonna sit here, but this is
I know, dude.
miniature. No, I'll sit here. That's okay.
Take the leg over.
Oh. Where are you from?
Indian Town.
Indian Town? That's where you currently live?
No, I stay 4 years.
Okay. How long you work here?
This year, make 3 years.
Okay. That's not bad. I'm John, by the way. Or Officer Laviano. Whichever you prefer. Do you know why we're here?
Yes.
You think? Okay. I'm not going to ask you any questions or anything like that. I'm going to wait and see what we got and everything else, and then we can kind of go from there. Okay? I tell you this, no one's here to mistreat you. It is what it is at this point, right?
Issue 1. Under Florida Statute Section 812.014, grand theft of $100,000 or more is a first-degree felony. With a confirmed loss of $135,000, Breland faces a maximum of 30 years in state prison on this charge alone. Issue 2. The Miranda waiver. The detective read Breland her rights, then asked if she had questions and wanted to talk. She said yes. Under Burgess v. Thompkins, 2010, that single word is a complete, legally valid waiver. From that moment, every admission Breland made, the override codes, the debit cards, the supervisor's PIN, the 2-month timeline became admissible evidence the prosecution can use without challenge. Issue 3. Under Florida Statute, Section 817.568, using another person's identifying information without consent is a third-degree felony, entirely separate from the theft charge. The supervisor's PIN triggers this count independently.
So as long as you stay compliant, and it is what it is, right? Your reason behind it is your reason. We'll decipher that down the road. If you want to talk to me about that, you're more than welcome to. All right? Is this your first job working here, or yeah? You got kids?
2
Boys? Girls? They stay with you in Fort Pierce? Do you have your ID on you or no?
No.
Okay, not a big deal. Your first name is Keandra.
Keandra. K-O-N-D-R-A.
D-R-A?
D-R-A.
D-R-A, okay. Middle name? And then last name is Breland.
B-R-E-L-E-N-D.
Do you have anything on you that you shouldn't? Okay. I know it sounds silly. Could you, no scissors or anything like that?
No.
Okay, could you stand up for me, please? You're good, I'll get that. So,
These are mine.
can you remove your vest for me? Without exposing yourself, obviously. You can take it off.
Take it off.
Yep. Your chains, can you pull up your chains?
Yes.
No, don't expose yourself. I'm sorry, I want to be clear. Without exposing yourself, pull up your chains so I can just make sure there's nothing. Very good. And then turn around for me. Okay. I'm going to ask you to take the right pocket there. Take whatever's out of the right pocket and your cell phone, please. And then if you could, without overly exposing yourself, just lift up the back of your shirt for me. Thank you. Spin, 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 spin. Thank you. Thank you. Keep spinning.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. And then what I want you to do is place your hands behind your back, like you're praying, so to speak, backwards. Okay. You're good. You're good. I'm not trying to get your hair all gross, you know what I mean? All right. Let me double lock them, okay, so they don't tighten up on you.
You already have this working?
What?
You already have this working?
I do not, no. I'm sorry. Is this all your stuff?
Yes.
If you rush to know that.
These are all on.
What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get a bag, okay? Okay. You know what's going on? Right now you're under arrest, okay? So I'm gonna bring you back to the station, the detectives can talk to you from there, and then we'll go from there. I'll probably be with you the majority of the day.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to deal with me. All right, so we'll be good. If you need anything, just let somebody know too. You go to the bathroom, not necessarily now. Like I said, no one's gonna treat you bad or anything like that, all right?
772-878-4881.
Yeah. That's an armband?
No, for my hair.
Do you want me to see if I can get you some tacos for lunch? Or no? Okay.
That's his info.
Manager, okay. All right. We gotta be very careful going down the stairs, all right? I don't want any accidents,
Okay.
all right? Hold on one second. Let me go a little bit before you. You know what, looking back on this, I kind of did this messed up. I'll take the hit on this. Because I probably should have. It's pizza oven.
So anytime you guys do
Sit your bottom first and then just watch your head. Yeah, sorry. We can't afford the cushions. Good? All right.
Each of these that I just read them to you? Yes. Okay, you want to have a discussion with us? gotta verbalize.
I don't really understand much, because I've never been in trouble for it.
Okay, well, what I'm asking you is, do you want to talk about why you're here today? And the manager and...
Yeah, he was already up there, and he went to talking, and he told me about why I did what I did, and I told him.
Well, what did he tell you? I'm a kind of detail guy. I mean, clearly he brought you in and said, we got a problem, right? What problem did he tell you that he had?
About me refunding, why not so long to help family out, even though I never benefited from it.
So I don't know the whole specifics of this whole thing. To be honest with you, I was at breakfast, and so they called me up and asked me to come in and speak to you and text on that. So you were refunding, taking the product, or were you just getting the SKUs and writing the SKUs?
Yeah.
Running the SKUs? Okay.
I wasn't taking.
So you didn't actually take the TV. But that's good, though. That's good, because if we actually were taking the stuff, then that would be a bigger issue. Good. So you were taking the SKUs of the thing, and you were going over, what's your position at the store?
Cashier.
Cashier. So you would have access to return stuff? Okay. And where did you do this in the store? I don't really know how the store is made up,
At membership desk.
Oh, okay. So you'd be at the membership desk, you get the SKUs, you'd ring it up and do it as a return? Yeah, now to do that, what would you have to do? Because I just know that when I return stuff, you have to call a manager over to do something. How does that work?
Yeah.
Or did you have the ability to go in and do it on your own?
Yeah.
You could, or you have to call a manager?
No, the supervisors, it requires an override.
Is that like a number?
Mm-hmm.
And is that number assigned to each supervisor?
The number that's assigned to,
And how did you get that number?
just by them overriding, and I'm,
Watching? Yeah. Well, that's typically how people. What manager did you get it from?
not a manager, they're supervisors,
What supervisor did you get it from?
Paola.
Who?
Paola.
Paola? Is that correct? You friends with Paola, or?
I mean, not friends, but I talk to her a lot. Not like that outside, or just...
Did she give you the number, or did you
No.
you just saw her do the number and took it?
I mean, regularly being at the register.
Okay.
The override requires a lot, so that's part of their job, overriding it. So they do it. It's a lot.
But you had the knowledge to go ahead and how to do that, right?
I saw.
Because you saw what they were doing.
Yeah, I saw their numbers. Cannot.
So Paola wasn't involved in any of this? It's just you? Okay. So, you said TVs, and I saw the list, there's a bunch of different items. How long has this been going on?
Not long, like 2 months.
2 months? And when you would do the returns of the money, where did the money go?
To relatives, being stupid.
Well, yeah, but don't you have to, and I'm just speaking from my experience in doing these kind of things, don't you have to, like, give them a card or something like that to put the money on? Whose card were you putting the money on?
On debit cards.
On your debit card?
No, I wasn't getting anything from it, no.
Whose debit cards are you putting on?
Not from my relatives.
What's that?
Relatives.
So they would give you a debit card and you would put money on it for them? So there's a different debit card for every transaction?
Not many.
Okay. Were they aware of what you were doing?
Not really, just...
Well, they kind of had to be aware, right? Because they were getting money on their account, right? So they would kind of have to know, unless you were explaining something to them. Did you tell them what was going on?
No, they just knew I was just helping them. They was in need, and I've always been genuine and had a big heart, so...
Well, I get it. Family first, right? Do you have an approximate idea how much money that you did this, or how many items to a total? Does over $100,000 seem about right? Because those are the transactions that they're supposedly have pulled up. Did they tell you that?
No, I didn't do that. No. That money.
Well, you might be surprised though, because like TVs are $1,500 or whatever a piece, they kind of add up pretty quick, right? If you did 100 TVs.
No.
No. So you'd be shocked that it was over $100,000?
Yes, I would, because, I would be shocked.
Okay. Anybody else in the store doing this that you know of, or did anybody else teach you this? When you're being truthful to us, if there's other people that are doing it, they're gonna find out.
We don't know what that other person's gonna say when we find them. So the last thing you want is them to try to
Sit there and say, you know, she's the one that told me how to do this, and, you know. So I'm just looking at you, I can tell there's other people that are doing this that you know. Who are those people? Just my years of doing this, I can see you do have a big heart.
Issue 4. Interrogation Tactics. Under Frazier v. Cup, 1969, officers may legally deceive suspects about evidence. The detective's pressure to name accomplices is constitutionally protected, but not without limits. Under Brewer v. Williams, 1977, all post-Miranda pressure must stop the instant a suspect clearly invokes the right to silence or counsel. The Constitution draws a bright line. The detective was approaching it. Issue 5. Florida Statute Section 817.034. The Florida Communications Fraud Act makes a scheme to defraud over $50,000, a standalone first-degree felony, stacked on top of the grand theft count. Same conduct? 2 separate convictions. Combined exposure. Grand theft at 30 years. Communications fraud at 30 years. Identity theft at 5 years. 1 scheme. 3 charges. A maximum of 65 years. Breland did not know this when she sat down and said yes. Then came 5 words. I'm not going to talk. Under Davis v. United States, 1994, that is unambiguous invocation. Under Edwards v. Arizona, 1981, all questioning must cease immediately, no follow-up, no one last question. The detective stopped at that exact moment. No follow-up, no pressure, textbook compliance with the Edwards bright line rule. He then informed Breland of the charges notification, not interrogation. Legally, a clean line. The charges filed. Grand theft over $100,000, first-degree felony. Scheme to defraud, over $100,000, first-degree felony. Theft of personal identification, third-degree felony. Maximum indictment exposure, 65 years.
I can see you're struggling right now. But there clearly is more than one person that's doing this. And that's what we're trying to say to you is, you don't want to get yourself jammed up for stuff or transactions that you didn't do. If somebody else is doing those transactions, those are the ones that they need to be held accountable for their actions, right? And so that's why we're asking you this question. Because as they go through and they pull this data, they're just going to attach it to the person that it belongs to.
Well, I'm only responsible for my action.
I agree, but your person that talked you into doing this is also
But what
decent.
everybody else is doing, you know.
No, but you said there was somebody that taught you this. And they taught you something that they shouldn't have taught you, right? And now you're going to experience a consequence for that, right?
I mean, also, I don't know if this person was forcing you to give you some cut of it because they're teaching you how to do this and explaining how to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to be honest with you, we're going to look into all the bank records. So if it's going to this other individual, it's going to look a lot worse for you. All right? And if it's coming back to yourself as well, and you're telling us that you're not taking any portion of it, it just doesn't look good. All right? So this is your time to tell us exactly what happened. It's the only thing that's going to help you.
The 5 words that ended the interrogation. I don't want to talk anymore. Under Davis versus United States, 1994, that statement is unambiguous invocation. Maybe I should have a lawyer does not satisfy the standard. Under Edwards versus Arizona, 1981, all questioning must cease immediately and may not resume without counsel present. The detective stopped at that exact moment. Textbook compliance with the bright line rule. The charges. Grand theft over $100,000. Scheme to defraud over $100,000. theft of personal identification, 2 first-degree felonies, 1 third-degree felony. Maximum exposure on the indictment, 65 years. The lead officer earns an A. Pre-Miranda restraint was textbook. Search incident to arrest preserved dignity. The detective earns a B. Effective rapport, lawful pressure, immediate respect for invocation. The suspect earns a D+. Cooperative posture cost her every admission. The eventual invocation was correct, but late. 3 lessons. First, Miranda is not magic. Saying yes after rights are read is a complete waiver under Burgess versus Tompkins. Second, the right to counsel must be invoked clearly. I don't want to talk anymore. Works. Maybe I should. Does not. Third, in white-collar cases, the same conduct can support multiple felony convictions stacked. 1 scheme, 3 charges, 65 years. Do you agree with these grades? Was the detective's pressure within bounds, or did it cross the line? Share your reasoning in the comments. Subscribe for more legal breakdowns of police interactions. And remember, every encounter is governed by law. The hardest lesson is when the words that end an interrogation come 3 sentences too late.
So, I'm just going to tell you what they're going to be charging you with, just so that you're aware of it. They're going to be charging you with the grand theft, and since you've never been in trouble before, so grand theft is theft of anything of $750 or more, but because they're showing a loss of $135,000, I think it is, you're going to be charged with that. So that's first-degree felony, and then you're going to get charged with scheme to defraud, and that's over $100,000 too, so that's another first-degree felony. And then theft of personal identification, and that's a third-degree felony. All right. So the officer's going to type up his affidavit, and he'll get it all done, and then they'll transport you up. If at any time, I'll give you my card before you leave. If at any time you want to kind of, set yourself free with, mentally,
Absolutely.
you can give me a call.
Absolutely.
He said it. You want to get ahead of this. Is what you want to do. All right?
Thank you.
All right.
Grades. Officer Loviano earns an A. Pre-Miranda restraint was precise, no interrogation before rights were read. The search incident to arrest was dignified and legally sound. Professional conduct at every stage. The detective earns a B. Effective rapport, lawful pressure tactics, immediate respect for the invocation. Breland earns a D+. Cooperative posture produced 17 minutes of admissions. The invocation was correct, but far too late. Lesson 1. Miranda is not magic. Answering yes, when asked if you want to talk, is a complete legal waiver under Burgess versus Tompkins. The warning means nothing if you speak afterward. Silence must be actively chosen. Lesson 2. Invocation must be unambiguous. I don't want to talk works under Davis v. United States. Maybe I should have a lawyer does not. The difference between those phrases can mean decades of prison exposure. Lesson 3. In white-collar cases, 1 scheme can generate multiple stacked felony convictions. Prosecutors are not required to choose. The same transactions that produced $135,000 produced 3 separate charges and 65 years of exposure. The final lesson. Know the law before you sit down. Every encounter is governed by law. The most expensive lesson here is the one nobody taught. Breland, the right to remain silent is worthless unless you use it immediately.